There is a quiet dignity in the lives that remain uncaptured. In a world that screams for your attention, there is a profound, almost radical power in the person who chooses to remain a ghost in the digital machine. We have been conditioned to believe that if a moment isn't framed, filtered, and uploaded, it didn't truly happen. We have been taught that our worth is a currency minted in likes and validated by the gaze of strangers. But for some of us, there is a growing, heavy realization that the more we share, the less we actually possess. You might be one of those people, the one who watches the sunset through your own eyes rather than a glass screen, the one who sits at a dinner table and feels a strange, cold distance from the friends who are more concerned with the lighting of their plates than the warmth of the conversation. You are not behind the times, and you are not boring. You are perhaps one of the few who are still trying to keep your soul for yourself. We live in the era of the observed life, a psychological panopticon where we are both the prisoners and the guards. But you've chosen to step out of the light. You've felt that hollow ache that comes after posting something deeply personal, that vulnerability hangover where you realize you've traded a piece of your private sanctuary for a fleeting hit of dopamine. You've started to realize that the digital world is a hungry ghost. It takes and it takes, but it never actually feeds you. By choosing not to share, you are protecting something sacred. You are maintaining an inner citadel, a place where your thoughts, your joys, and even your deepest sorrows belong only to you. This silence isn't a lack of substance, it is an abundance of presence. It is the refusal to turn your existence into a product for consumption. To understand why some of us have retreated into this digital quiet, we have to look at the psychological concept of identity fragmentation. When we post, we aren't posting ourselves, we are posting a curated avatar, a lesser self that is polished, performative, and perpetually happy. Over time, the gap between who we are in the mirror and who we are on the feed begins to stretch until it snaps. This creates a deep underlying anxiety. If you don't share your life, you are essentially refusing to split yourself in two. You are choosing wholeness over performance. You have recognized, perhaps subconsciously, that the moment a private experience is witnessed by 1,000 eyes, its chemistry changes. It becomes the observed object. A beautiful morning walk is no longer about the air on your skin or the rhythm of your breath. It becomes about how that walk will be perceived. By staying silent, you are preserving the purity of your own experience. You are keeping the magic of the unseen alive. Many who abstain from the digital stage are often those who experienced a specific kind of psychological exposure in their formative years. Perhaps you grew up in a household where your privacy was a luxury you couldn't afford, or where your achievements were used as social capital by others. For you, the act of not sharing is a belated reclamation of your boundaries. It is a way of saying, my life is not a public park for others to wander through. In psychology, we call this the development of the private self, which is the foundation of true intimacy. Without a private self, we have nothing to offer those we truly love because we've already given it all away to the crowd. When you don't share, you are building a reservoir of energy. You are practicing digital asceticism, not because you hate technology, but because you value the weight of your own reality. There is also the weight of hyper-comparison to consider. Every time we scroll, we are engaging in a subconscious ranking system. We are measuring our behind-the-scenes footage against everyone else's highlight reel. For the person who chooses to stay off the grid, this is a survival mechanism against social erosion. You have realized that you cannot feel inadequate about a life you aren't comparing. You have chosen to opt out of the status game. This is often a sign of high autonomy, the psychological ability to self-govern and derive value from internal rather than external sources. While the rest of the world is starving for a like, you are learning to feast on the quiet satisfaction of just being. You are avoiding the ego trap, where your self-esteem becomes a volatile stock market, rising and falling based on the engagement of people who don't even know your middle name. Think of your life as a secret garden. In the modern age, we are encouraged to tear down the fences, put up neon signs, and sell tickets to anyone passing by. We prune the flowers so they look better in photos, and we hide the weeds because they're off-brand. But eventually, the garden stops being a place of rest and becomes a place of work. The person who doesn't share is the one who keeps the gate locked. They allow the weeds to grow if they want to. They sit in the dirt and enjoy the scent of the roses without needing to prove the roses exist. This is the psychology of containment. It is the understanding that some things are too fragile, too important, or too beautiful to be exposed to the harsh ultraviolet light of public opinion. Yet this path of digital silence often comes with a hidden cost, the ghosting of the self. In a society that equates visibility with existence, staying hidden can feel like a slow disappearance. You might look at your friends' stories and feel a twinge of existential exclusion. You see the world moving, documenting, and connecting, and for a moment you wonder if you're becoming invisible. You wonder if, by not shouting into the void is starting to swallow you whole. This is the solitude paradox, the tension between the peace of privacy and the biological need for tribal recognition. We are social animals, wired for the gaze of the other. When we deny ourselves that gaze, we are going against thousands of years of evolutionary pressure. We are choosing a higher, more difficult form of consciousness. This choice often stems from a deep-seated authenticity drive. You are likely someone who craves high-stakes reality. You find the low-stakes performance of social media to be exhausting. You don't want to connect, you want to be known. And you know that being known requires the kind of presence that can't be captured in a 15-second clip. It requires the shaky breath, the long silences, and the unedited flaws that we all instinctively hide behind a screen. By withdrawing from the digital noise, you are signaling to yourself and the world that you are looking for something deeper. You are waiting for the true witness, the person who will see you not because you posted a picture, but because they are standing right in front of you, looking into your eyes. But what happens to the mind when it no longer seeks external validation? There is a shift in the locus of control. For most, the center of their emotional world has migrated outside of their bodies and into their devices. Their mood for the day is dictated by a notification or the lack thereof. But for the silent observer, the center begins to drift back inward. You start to reclaim your attention sovereignty. Your focus is no longer a commodity to be harvested by algorithms. It is a tool that you own. However, this internal shift isn't always comfortable. Without the constant hum of digital feedback, you are left alone with the one person we are all taught to run away from, yourself. In the silence of not sharing, the internal dialogue becomes louder. The questions you've been avoiding about your purpose, your fears, and your unpolished truths begin to bubble to the surface. This is where the psychological shadow work begins. When you stop performing for the world, you have to face the parts of yourself that aren't Instagrammable. You have to face the uncurated self, the version of you that is messy, contradictory, and deeply human. Many people share their lives because they are afraid of this very silence. They use the noise of the crowd to drown out the sound of their own loneliness. By choosing not to share, you are effectively choosing to sit in the dark with your own soul. You are choosing to face the void of validation. And in that void, something strange and transformative begins to happen. You start to realize that the person you were trying to impress all along wasn't them. It was a version of you that never really existed. As you sit in that silence, stripped of the digital costume, you begin to experience a phenomenon we might call the weight of the unseen. When we post, we exhale, we release the pressure of our experiences into the atmosphere of public opinion, letting others carry the burden of witnessing our lives. But when you keep it all inside, the pressure builds. You become a vessel for your own history. Every meal, every sunset, every tear shed in private begins to accumulate within you, creating a dense, rich interiority. This is the psychological gravity of the private soul. You aren't just passing through life, you are absorbing it. You are becoming a person of substance because you are the only one holding the memories. This weight, however, can feel like a lonely burden. You might look at your phone and see a digital world that seems to be vibrating with a shared language you no longer speak.
There is a specific kind of social dysphoria that hits when you realize that your friends are building a collective mythology of their lives, in which you are increasingly a background character because you aren't providing the content to stay in the lead. You are experiencing relational drift. In our modern psychology, we have confused visibility with intimacy. We think that because we know someone what ate for breakfast, we know their heart. By refusing to participate, you are inadvertently testing the strength of your real-world anchors. You are discovering who actually looks for you when you aren't waving a digital flag. This is the pivot point, the moment you realize that your silence isn't a wall, but a filter. It is a survival mechanism designed to protect you from the dilution of the self. When we broadcast our lives, we are effectively watering down our experiences to make them palatable for a mass audience. We strip away the nuance, the awkwardness, and the in-between moments that actually make a life worth living. By staying silent,